Hey, happy St. Patty's Day. I'm not wearing green as you can see, but I have a green water bottle to celebrate. Anyway, it's time for Awkwardly Awesome Podcast starting right in a sec here. Be patient, sometimes good things take a bit of time to come. Be patient right now.
Today's guest, Kirk Hinkleman.
I'm so thrilled to have my good friend Kirk on the program. Let me tell you a little about Kirk. Kirk Hinkleman is the director of LifeWorks as well as an author, speaker, and consultant in the realm of all things human. He is the co-author of Intentional Teaming, Shifting Organizational Culture, and co-creator of the Liberty Plan. Kirk is committed to dismantling archaic thinking structures and systems around the concept of disability so that people who experience disabilities are free to take on valued social roles in the neighborhoods and communities. Cook is convinced that we need to view all people through a citizen-centered lens if we want to achieve real, lasting, and sustainable relationships and change. Please put your hands together. But if we were all in one place, it would sound louder. But anyway, put your hands together to welcome Kirk Hinkleman. Hey, Kirk Hinkleman.
Hey, Jason, how's it going?
Good. Happy St. Patrick's Day.
Happy St. Patrick's Day. Do you know St. Patrick's story?
Not really. Something about he did something really good. What's his story?
I don't know. That's why I asked you. So we both don't know.
Something about getting rats out of Ireland is all I can think of.
Okay. Well, we'll have to make it an intention to look that up.
Yeah, I don't know if that's true.
Is that not why we're here?
To talk about stuff neither of us knows. Just talk about one thing after another that we don't know, and then say, "Oh, we have to look it up."
I hear people logging off as we speak.
So, one of the many things that fascinates me about you is you have such a strong view that society should be there for all people, and we all can be citizens connected to one another. You told me like one time when we were talking recently about an experience in high school that might have started to shape this view. Can you tell me about your team member?
Yeah, sure. So I think we were talking about a guy named Tedros. In high school, I ran cross country and track, largely because your standard American sports that I played growing up, it becomes more difficult as people start to mature and grow in normal time, and you do not. So by matter of that, I was left a small, scrawny kid who had an athletic bug, and so that's where cross country wraps its warm arms around you and says, "Come run, little person." So I ran cross country and track, and this dude Tedros on our team was the fastest guy. Super just next level, made it look effortless, did the same training we did, but was just way faster than everybody. And over the years we became friends. Obviously, you're on a sports team. It's one of the greatest lessons or greatest gifts that sports teams can give you, or are these lasting relationships. And over the years, Tedros would tell me a story. Tedros, not from America originally, he's from Eritrea in Africa, and would openly share his story of how he and his family escaped. He was a child, and that things were not going well in his country for just good people, good citizens living there. So his parents woke him up in the middle of the night one night, and they escaped under the cloak of darkness via camel
Oh,
and donkey.
oh my
This huge quest across the country to make it safely, eventually in my hometown of Redlands, California. And he said I just had no frame of like, I don't even, as an adult, I think back about this story and realize the gnarliness and the heaviness of that moment for Tedros. In the moment, it was more like, wow, that's pretty cool, man. Why don't you tell me more about that? Asking questions like, what did you prefer, a camel or a donkey? And he very playfully answered why he liked the donkey better. But uh, I grew up so Redlands, California, in and of itself is a reasonably diverse area. People of all different, religious background, race, ethnicity, whatever you want to call it. But it wasn't until I gave Tedros a ride home one day that I started to kind of understand the societal construction, even in like city design and planning, that goes with what someone might be labeled with. So I gave Tedros a ride home. And so, mind you, let me backpedal. I know about this diversity because even from elementary school to middle school to high school, I'm around the diversity. The people that I see in my classroom are, white, black, Asian, Mexican, right? All of it.
yeah.
But if thinking about my neighborhood in particular was just completely white, and but it never clicked to me like, how do I see people in my classes of diversity, and where are they in my neighborhood? So I give Tedros a ride home one day and learn where the government funded housing projects are, and his home, and meet his family, and see the size of his home, and see the conditions of his home, and see every single person he introduces me to with a huge smile, and uh, with
Mm.
a gracious warmth of welcome. And that continued on and on, because as I got older into high school, I had a car accessible to me. It wasn't mine, but I could use it to get to and from places. So I ended up being a regular ride for Tedros. So I think for me, it was just the first kind of observation that people are treated differently, and they're treated differently due to labels. And those labels don't come from your genetics or your biology. Those labels come from humans. And so I didn't have that understanding that I have now then. But as I look back at the story and about my life, and my life with and Tedros's presence in my life, that's probably the first time that an observation that kind of burned into my memory. It's like a seed that was planted, I think.
So powerful. If anyone tuning in has a comment, please, we love comments. So please comment. You know how to do that. Just comment. Thanks. But so anyway, it's like Landmark says, we don't know what we don't know, and it's so interesting that you lived in your neighborhood in Wetlands and went to school with these kids of all different ethnicities, but you still didn't really. I mean, you knew a little about the differences an accent and stuff, but you had no idea of the differences in neighborhoods until you had that experience.
Yeah, until I was physically in a different neighborhood and noticed, oh, so this is like my neighborhood, and that everybody has a common aesthetic, has a common look to them, but it's not the same look as my neighborhood. And so I think that, and again, this isn't something that I put two and two together then, but now as I'm trying to, and I've always grown up saying I'm from Southern California and we're super diverse and it's, sort of this melting pot and, almost like a holier than thou for people who have this struggle with otherness or race or, you know, whatever you want to call it. It's just now that I'm understanding that that's actually, even from where I'm at in Southern California, from where I was born and raised, and all the places I've lived, that there are just structures that have been set in place that have been set in place with an intention to separate and divide and keep some people up and keep some people down. And it's from that sort of awareness that I'm finding myself kind of holding on to and leading forward, carrying, because I think it will shift my actions and shift my intentions in the work that I do moving forward.
Another huge part of the population that at least I didn't have that much exposure to for much of my childhood, ironically, is people with different kinds of disabilities. I who experience different kinds of disabilities. When I was really young, I went to a school that at the time was called Crippled Children's. Uh, this was in the 80s, so the name wasn't good. But then I went on to like a like public schools and private schools, so I kind of lost sight of this whole group of people, and it wasn't until at the end of college that I started working in unfortunately a group home. Unfortunately, because it's not the most progressive model, but a group home with adults that I'm like, oh my gosh, I just haven't gotten to be around these people or see this environment.
Yeah.
When, when was your first experience working with people who experience disabilities?
1998. I think it was in the fall of 98. I was attending school at University of California, Santa Barbara, um, studying as a psychology major, soon to be a sociology major, and knowing that my days at In-N-Out Burger were numbered. I knew that I didn't want to continue with that. This is not a
That
knock on.
wasn't a life path for you.
It wasn't, and it is for some people. And I've got a good friend from those days who has made a beautiful life via In-N-Out. So no slight on In-N-Out. I knew I wanted to work with people, and went to a class one day where someone came from this residential facility that was just off the campus of UC Santa Barbara, kind of pitching, we're looking for young, bright psychology, sociology majors to come out and work part-time, come check it out. So I went out there and met a guy named Jeff, and he interviewed me, and the interview went something like this. Do you have any experience? No, I don't. You're hired. And he
It
gave
sounds
me,
like a grueling interview.
it was gnarly. And looking back, I sort of understand why it is that that's the way the interview went. He gave me the name of two different dorms that I could work at. So this place had like a campus. It was a campus that had a non-public school on it and little pods like dorms where, anywhere from 10 to 15, either children young children, adolescents, or then adults would live. And he said, do you want to work at this place or this place? This is without seeing a human, mind you. And I said, well, that name sounds cooler than this name, so let's work there. And so that was my first foray into it. And I think 2-3 full days were spent learning how to identify behaviors, non-compliance, all sorts of things, all sorts of ways to restrain people, tackle people, all in the name of behavior management.
So
This is all
that's where they tie you first before really introducing you to the people?
correct. I was hired to work for the organization, then taught for 2 to 3 days on like mats, almost like you were in like, I don't know. And I thought it was really cool. I'm like, oh, this is what we do with people. Like, I'm there with a bunch of other new hires, and we're, learning how to put people into prone restraints and basket holds and all sorts of stuff. And then I met the boys who lived at the dorm that I worked at, adolescent boys with myriad of disabilities, and was paired with a kid who needed one-to-one supervision, and I was to be that person. And I was told, you cannot be out of line of sight, preferably within 5 to 10 feet of him at all times. And I spent literally the first 2 months working there, chasing this kid all over this campus, running all over this campus, and realized A, that he was in really good shape, and B, that I was out of shape, but got really quickly into it. Anyway, that was my first foray into it. But what I know to be true from that individual was that he was teaching me, he was putting me to the test. How committed was I to be in his life?
So how did this man begin to change your view of people who experience disabilities?
I think I was fortunate to be given the position to be one-on-one with him, because what his name is Brandon. What Brandon taught me was that people are more than what is written about them. I know
People
that's
are more. Can I just
mhm.
repeat that? People are more than what is written about them.
I think, especially in the context of the service system, that is true. I mean, I'm sure there's lots of lovely things written about lots of people who aren't labeled that they would say, no, I'm not more than that. That's really well written. But what I know to be true in being in the service system since '98 is that really, really dangerous and damaging things are written about people, on the basis of justifying funding, on the basis of justifying our existence in someone's life. What Brandon taught me was, um, that people have circumstances that are outside their control, that people who have different abilities, um, that lack the accommodations to help support them appropriately and effectively, can lead to stuff that is written that leads to a label and a narrative about someone that dehumanizes them, and can put them into this, like, the service system has a very strong vortex that people can get sucked into, where they cease to be human and embody labels, and in the state of California, UCI numbers. They become part of ratios. I was a one-on-one to Brandon. Some of Brandon's roommates in the dorm would be part of a ratio of 3 to 1. We start thinking about people in terms of blocks of time instead of as being human. So that's what Brandon taught me at a very early age, and very early experience in the field, was that people are more than they are written about. That is written about them.
I mean, that could happen to any of us if, like, someone is following us around, cataloging every time we do something wrong, and writing reports on it, and then not seeing the good stuff. What besides running fast, what were some of Brandon's gifts that you came to see?
Brandon lived life just on one of the most positive people I've ever met.
That's huge. It's
Yeah,
huge.
huge. Yeah, huge. He had a just a loving nature about him. He cared about the other people who he lived with. Um, I think he understood that he was identified as someone who might be dangerous because he had somebody with him at all times, no matter where he went. And I think about that. I think about he has tremendous patience because I can think for my own life, if I had somebody within 5 to 10 feet of me at all times, writing shit down. Sorry, I didn't know. I don't know what the podcast is rated, but writing stuff down about me in the moment. Calling my mom. Brandon was from Hawaii, so I was liaison between him and his mother. I would call, and I think typically I would call and say, yeah, things are going well, and here's all the times he did this, which he's not supposed to do, and this, which he's not supposed to do. And I can think about if I lived in that container, I'd be absolutely wrecking shop, just messing with people. Brandon never did that. Brandon just accepted that this is my life, and he would have struggles from time to time. But I think patience is huge. Patience and positivity to be able to live the way he was living in that place, which was not a good place.
We have a comment from Tina where I posted it. Will you please read it because you read faster than I do probably.
Sure, Tina says, excellent education and humility, and exactly, people are more than what is written about them. Truth. Happy St. Patrick's Day, Jason. I'm gifting your book to new friends in Soquel near Santa Cruz. Nice. Banana slugs.
Cool. Thanks so much for all your support, Tina, and I'm glad she wrote down your quote. I was actually thinking of writing it down, but she beat me to it.
Cool.
I as a member of the community who goes to grocery stores and okay, I don't know why I'm stumbling over all this. I mean, everyone here knows what being a member of a community is like, all the things you do. But as one of those people, like, how do we if we don't work in this area, how do we support someone like Brandon if we see them in the grocery store? How do we be a good community member?
Wow, that's a big question, Jason. I would say just at a very basic level, if we as neighbors and citizens living in community can get to a place where we're just open enough on a personal level, right? If I just set an intention personally to be open enough, to slow down enough in my life to see and hear someone at a different level than the quick paced downloading level, right? Like all of our lives are super busy, even in pandemic times. We've got information at the tips of our finger. We can schedule meetings. We do crazy things like live podcasts and live feeds on Facebook. Um, if we're not intentional about slowing down, we're going to miss people. People with disabilities in community um, absolutely live lives of marginalization. They find themselves on the edges of community, and I mean physical edges, right? So Tedros's community was at the physical edge of my town,
Mm, mm,
not in the safe center. And
mm.
even those people who might luckily find themselves geographically in the center of a community oftentimes don't feel like they're with community. You can still feel isolated in the midst of people.
mm,
So
a good point.
to circle back to your question, I mean, if people can just understand that beyond, so in the context that people are more, that Brandon taught me that people are more than what is written about them.
Mm,
A friend of mine who lives and works in Indianapolis says that people are more than you see.
mm,
So there's I am more than what is written about me, and there's also just a very straightforward I am more than you see,
mm.
and that requires a slowness. That requires a slowing down, putting this down, and being with those around us in a different kind of way.
What are you saying, Kirk?
I'll shoot you in a text.
I'm Tina. I love the simplicity of this. She says, you say hello and smile.
First step, eye contact, right? Like seeing someone, like actually seeing someone and not making a weird face or looking other way or not just staring at someone, but like just seeing somebody and smiling and waving like you would anybody is the first step.
What is going too far? Like I think with other people's infants, sometimes we want to run up to them and go coochie 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 coo, and the parents are like, what's a stranger?
Yeah, yeah.
So
I would say
like what's going too far with
I would
someone?
say doing that exact thing to somebody with a disability who's an adult is also going too far. Going up to someone going coochie coochie, that's also going too far. And that sounds funny, but I know too many people who experience disability who say that that very thing happens to them. That someone in the community member. So going too far would be going up and patting someone on the head with glib comments and kind of like, oh, poor you, like it's so good to see you out
Will
in the
people
group.
actually do that?
Yes, and yes,
Please,
yeah,
wow.
yeah, yeah. And again, it's not, it doesn't come from a place of maliciousness. It doesn't come from a place of like intentional belittling. I think that society has created this thing that people see people with disabilities as lesser than, as other, and we should feel sorry for people with
Mm,
disabilities. So it, and I don't know the answer to get that shifted in a way that's really going to take hold. It's sort of my life's mission is to figure it out, but I don't know. I'm not there. I just know that each individual, one person at a time, can make a shift in their own way of interfacing with those that are around them, including folks with disabilities.
but part of my life mission now is I want to be doing something in a store sometime and have someone come up to me and go pat me on the head and go coochie coochie coo.
Yeah, I please let me know when that happens.
Oh, it'll be a great moment.
Yeah, sure.
So I had something more profound than that. So we what's the thing you mentioned? Mutual reciprocity.
Yeah, basic reciprocity.
Oh, basic reciprocity.
Hmm.
So, so the flip side of a coin. What would you tell someone who experiences a disability to 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 do to do their part in social interactions in the community?
Well, that I don't know that I would say something uniform to everybody with a
Yeah,
disability.
yeah,
I
it's a
think
broad question.
it's a person by person thing. What I know, what I think, I fairly reasonably is that there are some basic practices and there are some basic values that you can lean into as somebody who's trying to fully live a valued life and have a valued role in the community, because I think that's what we're after. It's hard to make a connection with others in the community when you aren't seen as having a valued role. It's hard to be included in community when you aren't seen as having a valued role. So uh, when I work with people who experience disability, who want to live a fully actualized life in the community of their choice, we start by just kind of maybe the word or the terminology is like taking an X-ray of their current life, looking at it from all angles, from top down, from left to right, east, west, north, south, like what's going on currently, what is your current reality, right? And then kind of inquiring about what it is you want your life to look like in the future, right? So and then helping someone to understand, here's my current reality, here's where I want to go, and the tension that exists there, and that's that space in between the now and the future reality that we really work in, and that we try to help people live in. And there's some things in that space that you can help guide people through to help get them to a place where they feel like, I'm a valued member of this community.
What would be a simple generic example of like an activity someone might do to get from the X-ray to feeling like a value member?
Okay, so let's just say, for example, we do an X-ray and it's discovered that someone lives while in, let's call it North Park. They live in a community called North Park in San Diego, and it's a walkable community. It's pretty heavily populated, and still say the words, I feel pretty lonely and isolated. So my future reality, I want to feel connected. I want to feel like I've got a vibrant and robust circle of organic support in my life, people that I can call friends, like I call you, Jason, my friend. Oftentimes people who access services or people with disabilities in California have a lot of people in their life, but a lot of those people are paid to be in their life, right? I've got supporters, I've got therapists, whatever label they carry, they're paid to be in someo's life. So
they got Kirk chasing them around a college
right. Sometimes they're trying to run away from these paid people. Yes. That's a recurring theme in my 22-ish years being in the field, is this, I'm chasing after people. Anyway, I think I got lost. So what we try to help people understand is, and this I learned from one of my mentors and guides in the work, John O'Brien. He has these 5 valued experiences that he created. Right, they are belonging, sharing ordinary places, being respected, contribution, and choice, and choosing. But my favorite of all of them, and to kind of answer your question about where does someone start? Someone with a disability and community, where do you start? Well, I think you start by sharing ordinary places. A lot of times people with disabilities are receiving services, and those services are funded to provide something where they end up in not an ordinary place, like a workshopy type of place in an industrial area of town, not near where they actually live. Or they're in their community, but they're also with 4 or 5 other people with disabilities, which is all well and good, except for they didn't choose to actually want to hang out with them 5 days a week for 6 hours a day.
Think about hanging out with 4 people you didn't choose, like 24.
Yeah. Those are the people at the place I started, right? You started at the group home, in California, the case management, the systems layer of helping people access services, people who live in congregate settings, they're, at least in San Diego, they fall into the department called placement. So you're placed somewhere, which just fundamentally sucks. It's not awesome. It can be very awkward, but it's not awesome.
Talk about a recipe for asking people to exhibit negative behaviors.
Yeah, totally. let's put a bunch of people who don't speak traditionally all in the same room with the hopes of their goal being that they'll learn how to use their voices to communicate. That makes zero sense, but that's the kind of things that we do in the service system. So I think a very fundamental thing would be to share ordinary places and not to do so willy-nilly. I mean, there's a couple of layers to that. There's, you can go to the farmer's market in North Park every Tuesday, whenever it is, right? And you're going every week, so there's frequency. Thursdays, okay. As a former resident of San Diego, well done, Jason. You can go every Thursday, and that creates visibility, that creates credibility, that creates a sense for everyone else who goes every Thursday in North Park. They start to see you over and over and over again, and that begins to sort of cement that you are a citizen who lives in this community. And I think one step further is if we've done a good job finding out, helping people kind of sort out what are their particular gifts and interests, right? Oh, you're a writer, you're a poet, and you want, oh, so in North Park, there's a coffee shop called Lestat's that has an open mic night on Wednesday. So now you're sharing an ordinary place every Wednesday night with a bunch of people who have the same common interests as you. So you couple that credibility and visibility with commonality, and now you're in a space where you can start to really create community for someone or for yourself.
I love what you said, but technically the Lestassa and Hillcrest, University Heights, and Normal Heights. There's none in North Park, but just a small detail.
Small details, and thank you for keeping me accountable with my geography.
I miss San Diego. That's why I gave the detail.
San Diego misses you.
Dallas and Tao says, Jason, I used to work with Special Olympic youth and loved it. They just wanted to be treated like anyone else, and I'm still friends with many of them. That's really great, Dale. And this brings up Special Olympics, like I didn't know about Special Olympics at the time, but I probably would have benefited physically from Special Olympics if I wanted to excel as an athlete, because as a mainstreamed athlete, I just didn't excel, to say the least. So what was the line between like something like Special Olympics providing great community to people who experience disabilities and what you're talking about being visible in your community? Does that make sense?
It does make sense. I think what you're bringing up is very, for me, it's very, the energy behind that is very palpable, right? So on the one hand, I think a program like Special Olympics provides an avenue for people, and I know many people, many people who I know well love Special Olympics. There's another organization here called Sports for Exceptional Athletes. It gives people a platform to comfortably and safely play sports with other people that they see as having similar abilities. What a program like Special Olympics is capable of doing is perpetuating an us and them. So I'll use my friend Tim as an example here. Longtime Special Olympics athlete, longtime Sports for Exceptional Athletes athlete. In the last few years of his life, he has gotten a job that has a schedule where he can't actually participate in those things because of the times that they're offered XYZ. And it blew his mind when I said, well, you don't have to play, if you want to play softball, you don't have to play Special Olympic softball. You can just play in your local neighborhood, like community park, co-ed, beer drinking league if you wanted. That's what everyone else in this neighborhood does. They just go play. And so to his credit, his supporters were a part of that conversation and got him connected to the local Vavi League here. And he's slated to start doing that in the coming weeks once it's all cleared and okay to do as things start to reopen. He's just going to be Tim playing on a team here locally in his neighborhood. And that for me feels more authentic and real if what we're after is real inclusion for people. Special Olympics is wonderful, its intentions are good, and it still congregates and segregates people, right, over here from stuff over here. And the people who run that organization and the people like Daryl who have worked with that organization are wonderfully awesome people. And I think you mentioned earlier, we don't know what we don't know. I don't know if that was before we were on live or after we were on live.
I think after.
So it's just, we get to a place where we're aware of things. We're aware of structures and that sort of thing, right? Again, to circle back to John O'Brien, I think Special Olympics saw a need, and created something that provided, an answer to that need. But I think that at the end of the day, I'll remember John O'Brien again when he says that disability is just another way of being human.
Disability is just another way of being human.
Yeah.
That's so good.
Yeah. So at the end of the day, if we can just shed our roles and labels that we carry, we're all human. And so then start from there and build back up. I'm a human who lives in this community. What is around me that I can access and be involved with, regardless of label?
And that brings up the commonalities in the advice you said one of the first steps is for people who experience disabilities to be more visible in the community, but how often are just people who don't experience disabilities kind of isolating themselves and thinking I don't have any friends? And I mean, during the past year is so different, but so I'm fascinated how the advice to people who experience disabilities isn't like a unique set of advice. It's a lot of it is principles we all can use to better our lives.
100%. I mean, those 5 experiences that I listed off: belonging, contribution, choosing, being respected, and sharing ordinary places. If I took that X-ray for myself and just looked through each of those portals, and had a picture for what those portals would show. Oh, David Cross is online. What's up, David? Just seeing your comment. I would see a really, really great picture, and for me, oftentimes people, and that's not always the case for everyone. Obviously, the people that I support, depending on who I'm talking about, would look through those portals and see a blank canvas, or see it populated with things that other people say are belonging, but that aren't actually belonging, or that are respect, but aren't respect. So these principles are human principles. These principles and values of inclusion. It's important to understand what someone who is marginalized experiences within the construct of today's society. But I think moving beyond that is being aware that at the end of the day, we all stand on the same foundation of wanting to feel valued, which has nothing to do with disability. That's a human thing.
And this, of course, brings up you and Beth Gallagher created Liberty Plans.
Mm-hmm.
You probably know that. I'm not telling you anything you didn't know, but tell us about what a Liberty Plan is and how it can be applied to anybody.
Yeah, so Liberty Plan is a framework that we developed for, sort of discovering who a person is, discovering and inquiring about aspects of our life, or uh, categories in our life, right? Like our life is comprised of a bunch of different things we do or different interests we have. So the Liberty Plan kind of fetters out what those interests or paths might be. And we start with the person and we celebrate the unique gifts of that person. We have people say what it is they really love about themselves, which is a difficult thing for people to do,
Mm.
which is why it's important in this process to have people along for the ride, along for the conversation. Your supporters and your allies being present with you can help lift you up in this particular moment of the Liberty Plan.
So I didn't know that. So Liberty Plan isn't something. It's just the person supporting you and Beth. It's a bunch of people.
Well, it can be done for individuals. It can be done for groups of people. Normally, when we facilitate a Liberty Plan for someone, we ask them if they'd like to invite people to sit in on the process with them in a supporting
Oh,
role, because the process is a very wide open, vulnerable, powerful process. Planning, talking about yourself, planning for your life is an intense thing. And so if done properly, you at least give the person who's the planner an opportunity to welcome others in the process. We did a Liberty Plan for myself 2 years ago, about 2 years ago February, and I had the opportunity to invite who I wanted to invite. So it was Beth and my colleague and friend Joy were the facilitators, and then my wife sat with me. But I
mm.
controlled what was in the environment, the food, the music, all of that stuff, and it was a very powerful thing, and it led me to a bunch of things that I've already done or continue to do now. Um, so just to speak to the notion that it's not planning for people in that way is not specific to people with disabilities.
This is a something that fascinates me. Describe what a Liberty Plan looks like visually. Is it all words on a page?
So actually,
Oh
there's
my gosh.
well, I can't figure out this backwardness. There's my Liberty Plan. It's a smaller version of, but it's visual, and
It's beautiful.
that's credit to Joy Bow and her graphics. But you see these pillars. I'm going to try to hold that and point. So down here is where I was talking about, where we're celebrating gifts, right? So these are all the words that I said, and then my wife and the people in the room said, and
Mm.
then I've got here. So people just pick categories. So at this time picked spiritual health, physical fitness, personal and professional growth, and writing. Those were the categories that I wanted to focus on. And then in each of those categories, we celebrate just for a little bit what have you already accomplished in each area. And then where the imagery really comes in is the vision of the future, right? So if you see, you know, I'd mentioned this tension that's created between where you are now and where you want to be. Depending on who you're reading or studying, it's called tension, brave space, creative tension, whatever you want to call it. But there is
I
a
like
space.
calling it brave space. I've never heard that.
Yeah. Um, I've been playing with brave space. I'm sure it's not original. I read a bunch of stuff, and it probably comes from a bunch of different people. I know Brene Brown talks about brave space a lot, but I'm not sure in the context of this particular thing. But anyway, just to say that space is where we. Oh, there's Joy. Yeah, nice. You're welcome.
It's beautiful, Joy.
It's amazing. Yeah, I was super stoked. And there's lots of that. If I went through that right now, I could tell you maybe 60-70% of the things that appear in the future are happening now or have happened already. So there's a
60
power.
to 70%.
Yeah, well, that's 2 years.
Well, okay, let's talk a little about this because, like so many of us, including me, sets New Year's resolutions and goals, and then just kind of forgets ab- we forget about them and go back to the same old, same old.
Hmm.
To achieve 60 to 70% of way you envision, that's a big deal.
Yeah, I think so. But yeah, I think that what the observation here is that had this process not happened, had I not been held in a very safe space by Beth Gallagher, who teamed up with Joybo that day, Beth Gallagher being my work wife, I affectionately refer to her as my work wife. She and I created the Liberty Plan, and she is a beautiful human and a beautiful process facilitator. She kind of
Hey,
guided the
Beth.
conversation along. Was able to get to these very deep places, and look, 60-70% means there's 30 to 40% unmet and not done. But I think without having been through this process, that it would be a lower percentage. There's something about putting that kind of thing out there and having people hear you, people that you love and that love you, hear you say these things and kind of help support you to get there. Yeah, there's Beth.
Set an intention in public.
Yeah.
I wonder if part of this is often we set the goals that we think we should, that we feel we are expected to set, but they don't come from like a deep place within us, and they don't make sense in the context of our lives. So
Yeah. No, they don't. Yeah. And in the context of the work we do, person-centered planning is has become this buzz thing. It's become law, and that's what the organizations who have set an intention to do right by people. What we see all the time is that what you read, the I am more than what is written about me. You read goals that clearly were not written by a person. You read goals that serve the betterment of the service or the justification for funding and not the actual human being. So, us doing these processes on ourselves is, embodied practice. It's us believing in it so much that we use it for ourselves in our own lives, and I think that creates a little bit of an authenticity when we are, partnering with people to help walk them through this process as well. And there's a what is it? There's a connectivity between you and another person when you believe in a process and you've walked through that process, that holds an effectiveness, I think, that is lost if you're just like trained and educated somewhere, and here's the protocol and here's the XYZ on how to do something and go do it to people. And this is a much more partnering with people and holding people with love and care.
again, you work with people who experience disabilities doing this, but it just strikes me how applicable both this is to anyone. Because I've written things about myself at times that really cons- confined to I was in the writings about myself that I made about myself were almost claustrophobic. But you're saying in a community of loving people, your vision of yourself almost expands and opens up and becomes more authentic in a way.
I think so. Yeah, I think if you're, what Beth said, setting an intention in public, I think, opening yourself up to a level of vulnerability and transparency to those around you can seem frightening as hell.
Hmm.
Um, what comes of that, though, is just this incredible amount. If we're very easy and quick to beat ourselves up, who the hell do you think you are to have these dreams and goals, and
Hmm.
that kind of stuff, right? It's very easy the negative self-talk is very easy. But when you have intentionally invited people that you think love you enough to support you through that vulnerable process, and you say the things you want to say about where you want to go out loud, it exponentially increases your ability to succeed in that realm because of the people that are there, because people heard you say the words out loud. and because they know that it comes from a very real and raw and wide open place. That's what these processes offer, a real wide open space for truth to be spoken to power, right? So,
Well, what you're telling me is so human in the broader sense of the term, and so uplifting. We only have a few minutes left. I love asking all my guests what does imperfect best mean to you?
what does imperfect best mean to me? Um, I think it means being real. It means being honestly you. It means not apologizing for who you are. It means I think it means showing up and embodying whatever it is, the tenets of life that you have subscribed to, whatever the values you stand on, whatever you hold deeply inside of you from your upbringing and your evolution as a human being. You embody that beautifully, Jason. I mean, you put yourself out there for everybody in this fine book here. I mean,
Mm.
what you write here and what you live in your day in and day out practice is imperfect best personified, and I look up to you for that. Um, I'm trying my best to. I think that I'm really good at putting up lots of layers of fake shit, and I'm trying to unravel and peel back those layers and just be authentically myself. I think that's what imperfect best means.
That's a really human thing to put up layers of fake shit and and it's a process of peeling them back and all. So before we go, what's one more thing you want to tell people about including themselves and everyone around them in a community?
I don't know. I think for me, where I'm at these days is a lot of inward searching, a lot of being with myself in solitude and in sacred, silent space. Tapping into my own source of uh, generativity. The stuff that gets me out of bed. And if I'm living that way and I'm doing things that I believe in, whether it's as simple as driving one of my kids to their soccer practices or
Hmm.
facilitating a workshop, that I'm just living in the moment as fully as possible. That kind of energy, I think, is going to attract the people that you want to have in your life.
Hmm.
I think that like you become this magnet of good, that people who are into this idea that we all can, that we're better together, that we're meant to be around folks and be of support to one another as humans. I think that stuff attracts.
Yeah, wonderful. Thanks for all your stories and profound wisdom. One last thing. If people want to get a hold of you, is there a website they can go to?
Sure, yeah, you can go to lifeworks-sls.com. I'm assuming that by your shoulders moving up, you're typing that into the chat.
Lifeworks dash what?
SLS, samlarrysam.com, and you'll see me and many other characters in the stories that were told today, Jason. You'll see a Beth Gallagher, you'll see a Joy Bow, you'll see pictures of Liberty Plans, all of that. And my email address is listed on the website and all of that good stuff. But
Lifeworks slf.com.
SLS, like Sam, Larry, Sam.
Oh, yeah, that's right. You probably said Sam Larry Sam.
I didn't. I just did there though. Also, supported living services is technically what it stands for.
Oh, that makes quite a bit of sense. Okay. What? Oh, and there we have it.
That's it.
Well,
Yep.
well, thanks so much for coming on and sharing your truth bombs with the masses.
I appreciate the invitation, Jason. I love it. Thank you very much for having me, and we'll see you next time.
Yeah, see you next time. Okay, I'm going to hide you in the broadcast. I should have done that. I should have done that smoother, but this is how we're doing it. Bye. Okay, wasn't that amazing? So now the thing. Thank you montage. Yay!